I'll say that no Kevin was harmed in the scavenger hunt, so I'm doing well. But let me just welcome you all. So welcome to TOPkit Workshop 2024. As you mentioned, I'm Kevin Corcoran. I'm the Assistant Vice Provost for the University of Central Florida's Center for Distributed Learning. And as workshop chair, it is my honor to officially kick off today's events. And again, for those who did participate in the scavenger hunt, I am back safe and sound thanks to your assistance. I would like to also echo thanks to the TOPkit team and all the presenters for making this week's schedule so engaging. Wendy talked about this a little bit, but for those joining TOPkit for the first time, this workshop is designed to empower those who manage faculty development or prepare faculty to teach online with practical tools and strategies to enhance their vocation. As online practices and technologies emerge and evolve, we unite in this space to collaborate to build even a better future for online learning. Together, we will evaluate educational experiences and transform possibilities for all. And I do mean all. As my scavenger hunt explored the physical wonders of Florida, it's now time to explore institutional gems, those exceptional practices and technologies that ensure online learning remains firmly rooted in quality and engagement. Our topics this week include a number of items, including accessibility, AI, affordability, change management, digital credentials, virtual communities, gamification, self-care, quality assurance, and so much more. And we're excited to bring not only all these presentations to you, but plus our keynotes with University of Florida Sid Dobin on generative AI in the classroom, as well as Every Learner Everywhere's Karen Cangelosi and the student panel on equitable digital learning. I'm also excited to kick off our sessions today with a panel of rock stars to discuss the future of instructional design. And we're going to get to that in just 1 minute, but I want to thank you all again for coming today and being part of this community. So with that, I would ask our wonderful panelists to join me on screen, and then we're going to do a round of introductions if we could. So are we going to pin video or are we going to leave?
Yes, I am in the process of pinning. It's very hard when you're doing the three monitors. All right.
Well, as we get that going, perhaps we can start the introductions since we have the faces on screen. I'm going to ask my colleagues in Florida to go first. So Paige, would you mind giving a brief, maybe a 1 minute introduction about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Paige Scherzak. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Academic Technologies and Training at Santa Fe College here in Gainesville, Florida. And I was at the first TOPkit meeting, Sue. So just a shout out there for you and Wendy back in 2017 when I was down working for Valencia. So I've been here for 4.5, almost 5 years. I oversee a number of different aspects of online learning. So our Canvas learning management system, instructional design. I have an educational media studio. I also oversee our testing and assessment centers, which is atypical for this kind of position. And then different aspects of service for online students, so things like proctoring, tutoring, online quality, and then different parts of faculty development. So that's kind of me in a nutshell for the moment, Kevin.
Thank you, Paige. Michael, would you go next?
Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Wright. I hail from Florida International University in Miami, but I'm actually at UCF right now. They got me a really cool conference room because I was at Innovation Summit yesterday. At FIU, I am a faculty fellow with our Honors College. I teach for our College of Liberal Studies, but I also manage FIU Online's Learning Design Innovation team. We're the unit that you come to when you're like, I'm not sure you can do this online, but I thought I'd ask this one crazy team. So I get to work with those brilliant, creative instructional designers who solve the problems that many of us know real sound instructional design and visual design can do.
Thank you. Tina, could you go next, please?
Hello, everyone. I'm Tina Parskell. I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs and Online for the Colorado Community College System. So I serve as the Chief Online Learning Officer for the System Office. CCCS is a system of 13 community colleges throughout Colorado, and I lead all things online, both with a central team as well as liaising with the colleges and their e-learning team. So I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you, Tina. And last but certainly not least, Whitney.
Thanks, Kevin. It's very exciting to be here, and I am coming to you live from UPSIA in Boston. There are all the people, and thrilled to be in two places at once. So thanks for the invite, Kevin. I am the co-founder and chief academic officer at iDesign, and we serve higher education in the development of online programs by being staff augmentation for teams that might be too small to take on big projects, and are happy to serve. At this point, we've served more than 150 universities over our 11 years in business and have more than 300 instructional designers on staff. We take a team-based approach to instructional design. So I oversee video services, the graphical design team that makes the magic happen, makes everything look good, right? If you don't look good, we don't. So there's a lot of really incredible work that goes on behind the scenes here at iDesign to supplement the resources that are on the ground at various institutions. Thank you so much, TOPkit, for having me. I have had a resource in TOPkit for a number of years, so this is my first time being here, and I'm very delighted and honored to be a part of the family.
Fantastic. Thank you, Whitney. So this session is entitled The Future of Instructional Design Work and Faculty Development. So what I'd like to do is just briefly sort of set the stage for the conversation. Is that if we think back over the last 4 or 5 years, a few things have changed in the way that teaching and learning has happened online. If we weren't dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, we are now dealing with an AI pandemic of some sort. Between those 2 points in time, we've been dealing with evolving faculty competencies, evolving technologies, whether that's AI or XR, new formats for courses, whether that's length or badging. And we've also been dealing with, or at least the looming threat, perhaps the word, of Generation Alpha and how that may impact how we design for the future. And so during this session, we're going to take a little bit of stock of where we are, and we're also going to try to do our best to predict where we might be headed over the next 5 years. And so just to sort of open the floor here, I'd like our panelists to think back 4 years ago, because at end of March 2020, I think everybody was dealing with the same sort of panic and thinking about how has the learning design or the instruction design process changed since emergency remote instruction? How has it possibly enhanced your process? How has it negatively impacted, those approaches or those conversations? So, Tina, with a large set of community colleges that you're overseeing in Colorado, can you kick us off?
You bet. Part of my team that I lead is CCC Online, which is a consortium of the 13 colleges. We're transforming into Colorado Online. But with that, we had a central design unit that created course shells that were used by, a single shell was used by multiple faculty members. And so we went into the pandemic really having a good, solid infrastructure for online. Our colleges were pretty variable, and so we were able to leverage our design talent to help them stand up their online programs, but also really venture into synchronous remote learning. And I think that's really where my team has pivoted in the last several years, because we were very mature in our online offering. But the places where we really grew as a team, it seemed like getting in the go back machine or the way back machine with Sherman, right? But we really discovered that there's a lot we can do with synchronous live learning. And we've really been able to blossom with that, so much so that we're able to help our rural community colleges um, create a rural consortium to be able to create sustainable models that leverage synchronous learning, which is, for me, as someone who's always looking forward, it was really surprising to see how far we've come with and how this pandemic really enabled us to hone our craft in pedagogy for synchronous learning.
Bonus points for a Peabody and Sherman reference.
Yeah, thank you.
Michael, what would you like to add?
You know, I was been thinking about the answer to this question for a while, because I think there's many things that as instructional designers we had hoped, we thought were going to be transformative and we'd never go back to. And I think the biggest thing that changed for our team is that we no longer have to explain what an instructional designer does. Like, people now know we exist, right? We're here at FIU, where we're all these spaces and places. And I started thinking a bit deeper. What are maybe the subtle things that have changed the way we do what we do post-pandemic, and that we may not have noticed? And I think the real big shift, at least that we experience in our team, has been a focus on the value and the challenges with deploying UDL for learners and faculty who unfortunately deal with unreliable internet, students who are consuming and engaging with a majority of their coursework in mobile. And so having to, okay, now everyone's online, everyone's in this space, or not everyone, but more people are open to it. How do we do this? Not only because remote COVID was, hey, we're just throwing things online and praying it works. Now coming back to those instructional design principles and foundations we really know, how do we design an experience that really does justice to these learning goals and learning objectives and impacting as many learners as possible? So I think something that, you know, our team would say that has really changed is the focus, the awareness of shortcomings for previous design and accessibility, and now the focus to get it in that space, in that place.
Thank you. Paige, I'm curious, you know, from a state college, did the emergency remote instruction actually create new barriers for you, especially in faculty development, where there was this experience of this rushed experience to go online that folks have, or students for that matter, have been resistant to come to a fully online asynchronous model?
Absolutely. I think for us, the pandemic was kind of like a tsunami. It was an exponential increase in demand. And we certainly didn't get a lot of extra staff during the pandemic. That just didn't happen. Everything just moved over. I think we have some folks who are now online averse because they went through what I would call remote learning, not actual online learning. So we have some students and faculty who are just like, oh, online's terrible. And you're like, no, you were not in an online course. You were in a remote course. And I think we keep trying to raise that point for some individuals because they think online is just low quality and no interaction, and it's just somebody lecturing to them over Zoom. So I think there were certainly challenges for us to support our students and our faculty. When you have a small staff, when you have limited resources, any major change is gonna, you know, throw a curveball your way. But I think we pivoted as hard and as fast as we could. And I can tell you, I had many 14 and 15-hour long days when we moved to the pandemic, just trying to get support, help students, you know, help our faculty and our staff move over. I think for us, we do have some individuals who have who come to the realization that online can be meaningful. It can be an interactive and an enriched learning experience. But we also have a good number of folks who want all of our tech choices to be simple and easy to use. So I think that's one of the things that's really come forward. I might be willing to use Zoom, it's got to be easy. And so we have a lot of folks who will say to us, I got a little bit more tech savvy during the pandemic, but I'm not an IT person. I'm not somebody who can, sit there and wrangle technology all the time. So I think we still have a good deal of work ahead of us in terms of supporting all of our folks, especially like you said before, Michael, in rural areas, or Tina, you said in rural areas. We have people who live 20 minutes away from us and don't have solid internet. So I think that's going to be a continued problem for us.
Thank you. And Whitney, you have an interesting perspective on this. I mean, not only were you assisting higher ed institutions, but you also were knee deep, hip deep into K-12 for iDesign.
Yeah, Kevin, it's been really fascinating. I mean, before you said, imagine 4 years ago. 4 years ago today, the world had shut down and it got really quiet. And when I think back to that time period, instructional designers were in, I think you said, Paige, that there was an exponential increase in demand. I would absolutely echo that statement, because what we saw and what I heard in some of the research I was doing with a friend and colleague from Harvard, Patrice, was that we were seeing exhaustion in our instructional design staff, because there were, in many cases, one person, two people at any institution that were in charge of instructional design, because the need for instructional designers had not been firmly established at every institution. I think the pandemic did that for us, but that exhaustion across institution types really led us to think differently about staff augmentation models. So at iDesign, we were always building complete degree programs from beginning to end. During the pandemic, we were tapped on the shoulder by institutions to say, can we just set up a call center where faculty can reach out and get the help that they need on demand when they need. And I say, you said earlier that technology needs to be easy. Actually, Zoom being easy to use was still a problem that we're working through now at a lot of different institutions. Faculty think they know how to teach online because they know how to use Zoom. And so did Yoda say, you must unlearn what you have learned, right? We've been saying for 25, 30 years, lecture's not the best approach. You want to be the guide on the side, not the sage on the stage. The concerns about academic integrity, we were talking about varying assessment, adding in practice informative activities. I think that's true now more than ever with AI, which we'll get to in a minute. But certainly there's a lot of work still to be done, and quality has become what is drawing students in. So institutions that had online programs that were known to be good quality and well structured with a lot of student services or student support is where students are going, right? So we're seeing enrollment gains in those areas.
Thank you. And I'm going to just shout out to Tina in the chat. She makes this excellent point about 5 years ago, the year before the pandemic. We maybe were struggling to see the value in what an instructional designer provided. 4 years ago, in high demand and scarce availability across the globe. So, just hearing some of the perspectives you all shared, it all sounds like, while the emergency remote piece presented barriers, it also provided clarity moving forward. Whether it was the emphasis on UDL or reliable infrastructure, or the need to make things more simple and easy for faculty adoption, or staffing models, or new approaches to faculty support. There were ways that we saw the path forward and what we needed to do. And one of the items that Tina brought up was around the growth and sort of validation of synchronous learning. And so I want to sort of shift gears here and talk about changes in content and delivery formats that we've realized over the last number of years and that we're all grappling with. And that could be the craze around alternate credentials or micro credentials in the digital badging world. It could be around labor skills mapping or durable skills, competency-based education. And something that we're doing here at UCF is exploring short format semesters. And so, Whitney, I know that you're doing some work with a Mid-Atlantic university around mapping labor skills. Can you talk a little bit about that effort?
Absolutely. There's been a big push to open up jobs to people, not just with degrees, but with competencies and skills in certain areas. And we're seeing even government jobs remove the need for a degree from the job postings and listings. At that institution, Kevin, we're actually creating skills taxonomies, both of the terminal skills, but the enabling skills as well that will help students be able to achieve and master that terminal skill. So there's a really interesting project that we're doing where we're doing some intensive mapping of all of those things, in addition to mapping to the standards that the degree program, where those learning opportunities live inside. Actually, those degree programs need to be mapped to particular outcomes and standards as well. And then cross-mapping those to Bloom's taxonomy. And if you're familiar with the Iowa State version of Bloom's taxonomy, there's the cognitive domain, and then there's the knowledge dimension. And so where those two fit can also give us some insights into how you would scaffold learning across those various skills, allowing for remixing and reusing of content in a fully scaffolded format in order for students to achieve new outcomes in a non-credit fashion. So we're looking at how you could reuse the assets across an institution in a variety of different contexts.
It's just, I'm amazed at the work that is being undergoing, and it's just a massive effort. But Paige, I'd love your perspective here on what changes in content delivery or formats that you've seen at Santa Fe.
I think we've done some exploration of HyFlex in particular. So if you're not familiar with that, it's a course where a student could choose to attend a face-to-face session, do it virtually online at the same time, or watch a recording later online. So just in case I don't want to throw out jargon. So we've had some folks exploring HyFlex here in particular. We do have some faculty who did like the virtual hybrids where they're doing things synchronously. So they have enjoyed staying on with those. But I think HyFlex was it was one of our admins was pushing it maybe more than anything else. So we had some folks who were getting into it, but it's honestly, it's like the highest degree of difficulty with teaching because it's the spinning of plates, right? You've got to maintain your presence with the people in front of you, maintain your presence with the people who are virtual and live, and then think about how you might interact or follow up with people who are online watching a recording. So HyFlex we saw a kind of a tiny little peak and then it's dropped back down again because I think some folks tried it and were like, this is too much. I think we need to think about the way we support HyFlex differently. So right now it's just a faculty member in a room with the right technology doing the session. We don't have like additional helpers in there to manage the technology or look at like a live chat or keep things rolling. So I think we need to really think about how we support our faculty and our students in those different formats. I know there is some research that doing things in kind of what used to be called, I don't know if it's still called the quarter system, or doing things in those shortened semesters tends to work well, but it's usually one class at a time, or maybe two classes at a time. It's not somebody maybe necessarily taking a full schedule. So I think we need to really look at where are students going to be successful and what are the ways in which we can support them so they are.
That's a great point. I watched my daughter during the pandemic be in a HyFlex classroom where she was the remote participant and frequently missed. I don't want to say ignored, but just missed. So, and I agree with Michael in the chat, it requires significant support. And I love the framing of, we need to think about supporting it differently. Tina, I wonder if I could throw you a curveball and maybe pick your brain about what Colorado's doing around micro-credentials and badging.
You bet. So, Whitney, I just got so excited when you're talking about skills mapping, because one of the things that we're doing that is so unique is in response to the backlash from the pandemic, we really have a mental health crisis. And fortunately, we have a governor who really understands that and was willing to invest in behavioral health. And so we received a $15 million grant to not only create academic programs, but also to create badges, micro-credentials, and community wraparound services. So in addition to developing curriculum, I know I'm making everyone jealous because we're doing some progressive stuff. So we're also able to create really community outreach. So not only are we teaching and creating a workforce, but we're also creating resources in the communities that our community colleges serve to really support those communities in terms of behavioral health. So we've done skill mapping. We have a really strong partner we're working with D2L on it because we're kind of pushing the edges of our technology ecosystem with it. But we are mapping from stackable credentials all the way up to we're working on a new BAS in behavioral health. But we're also integrating some of the certifications and certificate programs that happen at the associate and diploma level. So it's pretty exciting work. I get to see it kind of from the infrastructure background. I have a colleague who's leading it, more boots on the ground, but it's really exciting what we're doing. And I think it's going to fill a really important need for Colorado.
Do you see the evolution of the relationship between higher ed and industry? Do you see that becoming tighter and tighter?
Absolutely. We are getting more and more in reach from industry. In fact, we just are launching in fall a BAS degree in cybersecurity. And one of the aerospace industry partners reached into us to say, hey, you have this new cybersecurity, how do we get involved? And so it's no longer just us reaching out to the community to say, hey, industry, how could you assist? How could we meet your needs? They're actually seeing what we're doing and they want to get involved as well. So we're also launching the Colorado Skills Institute to really focus on non-credit as well. And that's working really hand in glove with industry.
Fantastic. Michael, I've got a ringer for you. I would love to know your perspectives on Gen Alpha and whether or not we can continue to develop courses in the same format, which is click and point and read, or what considerations do we need to be tackling right now to handle this incoming generation?
Great question. I'm concerned that you saved that one for me, but yeah, I want to start off by saying something that I think is important for context. I'm a millennial, and I'm proud to be a millennial. And I know some of you are like, "Oh my gosh, you said that out loud. How could he?" And the reason I do that is because I think it's important. It can be dangerous to group, right, all of these generations into kind of into a box. I think the most dangerous one was digital natives. But I do think there are far too many valuable components and experiences to these learners to just throw out and not consider when we think about how valuable it is to design meaningful and transformative learning experiences for them. And so when thinking about Gen Alpha, I think I am the most excited for what their expertise, their journey is going to bring to the demand of instructional design. And I think that because for a long time, and I know this is true in the state of Florida, I can't speak to every other state, but I think paradigm-wise, we need to be thinking about more andragogical experiences than pedagogical experiences. And for those of you who may be just unfamiliar with andragogy, it's speaking about adult learning versus more traditional kind of K-12 learning experiences. And I see that Gen Alpha, the way they're engaging, the trends we're just seeing, they are trying to be accelerated to adulthood very early. We're seeing studies that are looking at their relationship with advertising and brands being far more mature than even Gen Z before them. And so they're going to not only know what options are out there, they're going to do the research on the problems. They're going to want far more agency and independence in that. And I know for some of you, you're like, Michael, Gen Z is already pushing that edge. And what I would say is Gen Alpha is going to push it even farther. Secondly, this is going to be the first generation who does not think of AI, as many of us do, as this, oh my gosh, we're finally in the future, right? We're living in the future. They're going to be living with the expectation that the value, the benefits, the techie kitschiness of AI is an expectation. And wherever you land on the AI kind of spectrum of love it or scared of it or it's the Terminator or otherwise, there's one thing that AI, at least in large language models, is doing phenomenal now. And that is, it is engaging with us in what seems like a very human and personalized way. And I know we might kind of like stand back and we're not sure like what I mean with that. And I think of the idea of when I go into ChatGPT to write something, how it'll ask for feedback. But when I'm meeting with a faculty, they're like, I've got 300 students. I don't want to give feedback to everyone. I need to get their grades out and get them pushed through. And so Gen Alpha is going to have all of these really unique experiences where technology seems to prioritize the personal, the intimate kind of experience. And we can expect as instructional designers to start working with faculty and SMEs to create a truly adaptive and personal learning experience. This generation, they're going to come in with these andragogical needs, these andragogical training, but more than that, they're going to expect an experience that is personalized to their learning journey, and one that I think many of us are excited to give them, but we need the tools, and fortunately, we need the demand. And I think Gen Alpha is going to be a really great opportunity for that challenge to come up, and we are the people who will step up to that and give them that really challenging but highly human, highly relevant digital learning experience.
That's
Can I
amazing.
jump in?
Yes,
I'm like
please.
so excited about what Michael has just said, because every step along our journey, we've been pushed to new heights. When I first got started in instructional design, everything was black and white. It was text on the screen, and we used conference calls for synchronous meetings, right? Like you dialed into a number on your phone that was still connected with a cord. We've come a long way in 25 years or so, and I can't wait to see where we go next. Kids today are growing up with, mommy's phone in their hand so that they can watch Cocomelon or, from a very young age. And then they're playing video games. They're immersed in movies. Like video games are like an immersive movie anymore in my mind as I watch them, unfold on the screen. The expectation is there that we will go next level with education, but the funding has never really been there for education to go to that level, which is why we're waiting for tools, because tools will make it more affordable. The video game industry can invest the kind of capital that they do into the development of these immersive movie/game experiences. Higher education and education at large typically can't. But I will tell you, I've been tapped on the shoulder by some young founders that are in their 20s that are thinking about creating gaming platforms for education that is going to take things to a whole new level. So I got a little excited, Michael. Sorry, I just wanted to piggyback on that and say, yes, bring it on.
All good. Love the excitement.
That might be next year's panel, or we start just talking about that. It's all I apologize to the UCF folks who've heard me say this, but imagine in a near future where AI is basically taking an account for the students' well-being and their current state of mind and prompting them and saying, what would you like to do based on how you feel right now? Do you want to review? Do you want to learn new? Do you want this in audio format? Do you want this in written format? Do you want it in interactive gaming format? But I digress. So what we just unpacked here around content and format changes seems like there's a lot that's going to be put on the designer's plate and the faculty's plate, whether it's as simple as supporting, well, not simple, but as to the roots of supporting HyFlix in a different format, or thinking about how AI is integrated into the teaching learning aspect, and how we can use andragogy and how we can use UDL principles in here. Paige, I'm going to ask you, how do we revamp our faculty development, with these additional competencies that we're requiring faculty, but also we're also seeing a shift in how faculty are coming to us. We may have folks that are coming through certificate programs of instructional design, or they may come in having been an instructional designer. So we have folks that are across the wide spectrum of background in supporting instructional design. So how do you handle this at Santa Fe?
I think we're at the beginning of handling all of this. I don't know if anybody's really got a full grasp on it yet. I would say a few things. One, teaching competencies aren't really going to change much. And that's weird to say, but the things you need to know how to do online are still the same things you needed to know how to do online. So engaging your students, writing outcomes, creating assessments, aligning your course. Those things have been around for quite some time. I would say probably 20 years now. So that really hasn't changed in terms of the competency. I think it's how do we get people, in this case, maybe faculty, to recognizing that competency or getting to it as fast as possible, and making sure that we're kind of smoothing the path for them to move forward. So with AI is a wonderful, bright, shiny tool. I think for some people it's pulling them along rather than them saying, what is my outcome? I need to know what my outcome is before I decide what the tool I want to use. So that really should be the basis of decisions, regardless of where you're going, no matter what the tool is. And faculty still need to have the competencies or the skills to judge the output from those tools. So if I don't know what a measurable outcome is, I can ask ChatGPT to make a bunch of stuff for me, but can I judge what comes out of it, and can I use it appropriately? So I think that idea still needs to be embedded in all the development that we do. What are the things that faculty need to know in order to use a new tool, change a format, interact with students differently? I think that's kind of the core of what we do. And then from there, are there ways for us to move the needle faster or better? So could we do some prior learning assessment with our faculty? We do it with some of our students. Are there ways for us to gauge the information that they come with when they arrive at our institutions? And this may be particularly important for our part-time and our adjunct staff, because I don't know about you, but every single institution has their own training requirement. And so every single adjunct or every single part-time person and full-time person has to jump through that hoop. What if we could streamline that? So we're giving you credit for things you already know, and then we're filling you in on the things that are relevant to our culture, things that we expect from you, and then hopefully, getting you up and running faster and giving you more just-in-time support.
Thank you. Michael, I'm going to ask you a slightly different question. With everything that we've been talking about, and knowing that there are federal regulations and there are other obligations for faculty, how do you balance from making sure that faculty are meeting accessibility guidelines, they're meeting regular and substantive interaction, requirements, and that they're looking towards the future and they're looking at how they can use AI tools? How do you balance that with your faculty?
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent question, Kevin. And I think, something that you have to begin with, and something that I'm really fortunate that the people that I work with at FIU Online, especially the Learning Design Innovation team, is we recenter before we kind of make a decision and we solve a problem, or we were presented with a problem. And we're like, what is the goal here, right? The goal is to give our students the knowledge, skills, and experiences to be able to provide and or feed their families or community, right? That is our North Star. And when we realize that's our North Star, we can look at some of these disruptions, some of these new innovations and say, AI is not doing something, is not bringing up a problem that is really new. Cheating was going on beforehand. Our assessments weren't that great beforehand. A lot of these things that we had in place, they were problems that the people in this room have been going to conferences talking about, have been reading books about, have been participating in podcasts on. We knew these problems were here. AI has merely exacerbated it and said, no, you need to react now. And so when we pair kind of that North Star and that realization that, oh, this is the innovation, this is the natural steps that we knew we had to take care of, but weren't priorities, that helps kind of bring us a little bit more at ease, kind of take the breath, take an easier breath and say, all right, this is the same battle. We just have to get to the end a bit faster. And so now, how do we accelerate that for you, our faculty? Well, the first thing is we got to talk about our messaging. This is no longer an idea that may happen. This is occurring. So now we have to clearly articulate why this is valuable to you, why this is meaningful to you, and bring you the examples of how this is changing now. Second is we need to give you a soft landing, right? A lot of these disruptions, when they occur, the hardest part is just getting out of that, getting over that initial friction and just moving forward. So my team has been really strategic in saying, well, what we're going to do is we're going to identify faculty that we know do the crazy things, that are up for new ideas, and we're going to have them pilot these new tools. But more than that, we're going to share their stories. We are going to send out the successes and pitfalls of it so that our faculty know, like, oh my gosh, this has been done. This can be done. And we're going to pair that additionally with resources that are almost templated to say, hey, look, this is something you can take and transform a bit that will work in your space. I think some skills that instructional designers are going to need moving forward, outside of just pedagogy, is we're going to need to start focusing on empathy and confidence building in all of our collaborations. And that has been, when you have that North Star, when you realize that the problems that are brought up here are just problems we've always had, just exacerbated by AI, then we can say, all right, let's get the messaging out. Let's make sure there's a soft landing, and let's ensure that we have the tools to go to the things that we knew were always true, right? The things that our students, the objectives truly need to be achieved, not I can rewrite, I can use different words in an essay. They need to be able to do those incredible things that you all have spent, our SMEs, our faculty have spent their lifetimes writing books about and studying.
Thank you. And I just have to note that this conversation, we've had the opportunity to come together previously and have a conversation that was just as rich as this. And we could clearly go on for hours on this, but we are running out of time. And so we will not be able to go into a deeper dive on AI, but I do want to jump to sort of our closing thoughts here around advice for the future. Because we did want to have a future look to where we think folks should be looking to, where they should be directing their efforts. And so what I'd love to do is ask Whitney, if you wouldn't mind sharing some thoughts on where you think the audience should be looking and directing their efforts over the next 5 years.
Yeah, let me use a 4-letter word: play. The pandemic pushed us out beyond the coalition of the willing, and we revisited the resistance that we had been working through for 20 years in the first 20 days of the pandemic. And now it's time to play. AI brings us an opportunity to not be exhausted every day, but to be re-energized and reinvigorated, trying new things, pushing the envelope, breaking things, which I think brings joy to most people in the field of instructional design. Hopefully, within your teams, you can make time for that. Our team restructured during the pandemic, and we tried to create a Friday afternoon window that we called innovation time, right? So everyone on our team gets a chance to use different tools, to explore new technologies, and to share in a Slack channel, not to get on a meeting and spend a bunch of time talking, but to share in a Slack channel what they've explored, how they've used it, how it's changing the work that we do, because the work that we do will change. It will change quickly, more quickly than we anticipate. And those of us that have been exploring artificial intelligence tools to do the work will be the ones that get the jobs of the future. So I think that, you know, my key is spend some time, roll up your sleeves, and play with some of these tools that are available to us.
That's awesome. Tina, do you have parting advice?
So I want to take a kind of a bigger picture. Is I like play, but I also want to leave folks with aspire. I'm an instructional designer by discipline, and I ended up in senior management. And so one of the things, and I love Paige talking about outcomes and assessments, all of that, all of the competencies that you all possess and do every day really are positioning you for a potential seat at the table in terms of the C-suite. And so I think about how, and be intentional about how your work could inform future opportunities for leaders, because we're seeing every day more and more chief online learning officers coming out of our ranks. So that's my inspirational charge to you all, is dream big, because you can do it.
Thank you. Paige, please, if you've got something to share for us.
My 4-letter word is data. You need to know your data. You need to understand what's happening in your courses, what is driving success, where are the obstacles, both for your students and your faculty. So you need to get a hold of your data. Some people, I heard somebody say data is the new oil. You really need to understand what's happening. And part of that is also, it helps you focus your efforts. So if you're going over here and working on the design end, is that really where you need to be? We just developed an online facilitation course because we have some folks who are doing just fine on the design end. It's the delivery that's killing us. It's the student not being able to interact with a faculty member. It's that an inability to create that sense of belongingness in the course, that connection that's really one of the issues. So I would say, know your data, know where the actual issues are, and then you can work towards remediating those while you're kind of moving forward in your next iteration.
Thank you. You all are making me nervous when you come out with a 4-letter word, but with that, Michael, please share your thoughts here for advice for the future.
I'm so glad I don't have to come up with a 4-letter. I couldn't do it. You all are just so incredible. I mean, all the advice said before is just it's incredible. I think the only thing that I might want to just accent is, let's focus on the human things. And what I want to say with that is, AI is showing us that there were things we were spending time on, energy on, doing that were not human things. And even in our design, right? Let's look for tools and strategies that can do the robot things, the software things, and let's reshift and recommit to the human things. Those are the things that, regardless of the disruptions that come about, right? My millennial thing, I always joke that I'm a millennial because I've seen things that I love. I've seen the world change and things that I love die. RIP Toys R Us. But I think, when we're thinking about what's future, how do we consult better? How do we design better? How do we serve our communities, our students, our board of governors? How do we do what we need to do better? We got to do the human things, not the process things, not the robot things. There's a tool for that, and at the rate that it's going, if there's not a tool for that today, it'll be here in 3 hours.
And I want to echo something, Michael, that you said to me, is that, the current adult student, that non-traditional student, is the millennial now. So I want to take an opportunity to thank everybody who's joined this opening keynote, but I would like you all to join me in thanking the panel in this wonderful conversation. I had a wonderful time moderating this, and I'm sure that we could have gone on for hours, but thank you so much.